Welcome back to Sunday Night Dinners with Deborah. This week's a little different. I am going to Sunday night dinner at my sister's house. However, because I'm the cook, I'm going to be bringing our dinner with us. So what I'm doing today is going to be filmed over a couple of days because what I'm doing today is making jerk seasoning. And then I am going to marinate some chicken pieces in the jerk seasoning. Then tomorrow I will be cooking it off here at home and doing all the other prep work for dinner and then taking it all over to my sister's and then just throw it onto the grill to reheat it. This is the best jerk seasoning that I've come across. It has a lot of different ingredients. I think it's something like 20 different ingredients. I am going to be reading it off of a paper because I have written the recipe down because, like I said, there's about 20 different ingredients. And it makes a cup and a half of seasonings, but we don't use that full cup and a half of jerk seasoning. We use it in the marinade, and then you'll have it, and it's good for a year. So you can enjoy it anytime you want. As you can see, I've got a whole bunch of ingredients here. So it will all be written in the description. 2 tablespoons of garlic powder, and it all goes into one bowl and it gets mixed up. Cayenne pepper. Now it depends on how spicy you want it. If you like heat, go for it. Anywhere from 1 to 4 teaspoons. 2 tablespoons of onion powder. 1 tablespoon of dried thyme. Now I have a lot of spices. Best way I've seen to keep them, I keep them in mason jars and in appropriate sized mason jars. And I alphabetize them so that way I'm able to find them on the shelf really quickly. 1 tablespoon of dried parsley. 4 tablespoons of brown sugar, and you want to pack the bowl of the tablespoon measure, just as you would when you're baking. 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of smoked paprika. Now you don't want to use just regular paprika, you want to have that smoky flavor. Now if you notice, my paprika is a little clumped. So I'm going to grab a sieve to put it through so that it doesn't leave lumps in my spice blend. I have a small slice just for this. There we go. Ground allspice. I went to the Caribbean on my honeymoon, and one of the most pleasant activities we did is we went to a spice farm, and I got to see how allspice trees look. And they're the most beautiful black and white trees. And it's a ½ tablespoon of allspice. 1 tablespoon of black pepper. 1 teaspoon of red chili flakes. Now I'm going to do about 3/4 of a teaspoon. Nutmeg is a 1/4 teaspoon. It's just enough to add a little bit of warmth to the jerk flavoring. A ½ tablespoon of cinnamon. 1 teaspoon of ginger. 1 tablespoon of chives. ½ teaspoon of cumin. 1 tablespoon of Chinese 5-spice. And now we mix it all up. You kind of have to just push against the edges to incorporate all the brown sugar. My dog's playing with his toys again. And if you have any lumps, Like I have some small lumps of, I suspect, that is onion powder. If you can see what I'm doing, just pressing against the edge of the bowl to break it up. And then I just grab a mason jar and I use a funnel and I just drop all that spice. And there we go. So now we're going to make the marinade, and we're going to be cutting raw chicken. So I've used a large cutting board, and to make it safe, I've got a wet dish rag, and I lay my plastic cutting board on it so it won't slip. First, I take 4 tablespoons of my jerk seasoning that I've just made, 2 tablespoons of oil, and 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. So that gives it a nice saltiness to it, while still giving a lot of flavor. And then I'm going to cut 1 bunch of green onions and pop it into the marinade. And so I'm just doing a rough bias cut on these green onions because they are for flavoring for the marinade. Just as I'm only going to rough chop 6 cloves of garlic. So that's like a thick slice because it's only for flavoring. If it were to be left, if it were minced and left on the chicken, it would probably burn. Grab my spoon and I make that into a nice thick paste. Now, I have a bag here. I find it best to marinate in bags. I know there's something to be said for not using plastic, but some jobs, raw chicken in particular, to be able to throw out the unusable plastic can be, it's a good reason to use it. So I'm just setting the marinade in there first. And if you've noticed, I folded back the top of the bag by about an inch, inch and a half, because it helps it stay open, and it also keeps it from the seal getting dirty, because I'm going to set this right at the edge of my board because now I'm going to start cutting up my chicken. So my chicken was frozen. I've been thawing it in the fridge and I noticed that some of it's still a little frozen, but that's okay because these are legs. You can get legs really cheaply, but I don't happen to like legs. So what I'm doing is I'm making a cut at the join of where the thigh and the leg meet, because I'm going to separate those out and you can pop them right out. And the other thing that I'm going to be doing is removing the skin, because then the marinade penetrates the meat. And we don't eat the skin anyhow on legs and thighs. They're just far too fatty. So we just set it all aside. I'm trimming off all the extra fat. And that's why I wanted this very large cutting board. Okay. Now if there's a little bit left on, that's okay. And I still have my back attached. Perfect. Take that off. And I'm going to just pop this into my bag. I'm going to do all the same with all the rest. So I've got all my pieces of chicken in this bag, and now because I folded it over, it's still clean up here. Make sure it's closed tightly. And now I'm just kind of working it through so that the marinade hits all of the chicken. And it's going to marinate for about 24 hours. This is really rather satisfying, squishing the bag like this. Just a couple pieces at the top. Okay. As you can see, we've got all the pieces. Now, just in case a bone penetrates the bag or any leakage, better safe than sorry, I'm just going to set this in the pan and put it in my fridge and let it marinate for 24 hours. Every time I think of it, you know, every 3, 4, 5 hours, I'll just flip the chicken over. Just like that, just to make sure that it distributes properly. And then tomorrow, we'll bake it off, and then we'll finish it on the grill. Just one thing of note. So before I started mushing the chicken around into the marinade, I cleaned up. I put away all of my spices. First I washed my hands thoroughly, then I put away all the spices, and then I washed all my dishes. I also washed my countertop, all with very hot soapy water. You don't want to mess around with raw chicken. Always take care. Remember safety first, and deliciousness quickly follows up a second. So it's the next day. I have been marinating my chicken. Oh, it's beautiful for 24 hours, and now it's time to bake it. I'm taking just a large baking pan, and I've covered it in foil. Normally I just use parchment paper, but this is rather sticky because of the seasonings with the brown sugar in. So my timer's got 4 seconds. I'm turning it off. Very hot, be very careful. Absolutely lovely. Now I take my thermometer and I'm just going to put it through this thigh here. Is probably the thickest, and you want to put it in and have it so that it does not hit the bone. Doesn't that look lovely? And we're trying to reach 165. So here we have it, 165. And now I'm just going to pack up the chicken to go. So I thought I'd show you what I'm taking out for dinner. I've got a coleslaw that's already dressed. It's just ready to go into a serving bowl at my sister's. I've got that jerk chicken that's all cooked. I've got some steamed corn that's fully cooked, ready to go onto the barbecue to get a little bit of a char happening. I've got some mango salsa that I've made to go with the chicken. I've got a cut up watermelon. I've already wrapped it up. I'm not going to unwrap it. And I've got some butterscotch bars for dessert to go with the watermelon. And I've got some beautiful spring mix here that you can see that I grew, and I'm bringing out just for my daughter and my sister just to have. I'm a kind guest. I've even packed up some butter. So although this week's dinner is a little different since it's all packed to go, it's our Sunday night dinner. So thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again.